Hello and welcome to Who Dares Rolls.
I
am for a mumbo jumbo jumbly mumbo thing for October the 10th-ish. So I've already recorded a good 30 minutes of video earlier, but neglected to turn the camera on, which that was disappointing. Whereupon I went through lots of stuff. So I'm gonna attempt to do that again, because that's like such is the life of a dipshit fucking YouTube person. What's begun? I've been distracted. So the hosting of the site has moved. So that's brilliant. I will, on record now, I had my hosting with iPage for some years, to be fair, and I'd kind of let it tick along. Bunch of fucking crooks, just so you're clear. They've been billing me for a web service thing on there that I cancelled years ago. That, to be fair, I haven't really kept an eye on it. It's another old email account. And they've been billing me. I've just found out they've been billing me for like a year or two for this stuff that I cancelled. And then they've weirdly got no record of it. So they're a bunch of dipshits. Never go for them be hosting. Bunch of fucking crooks. So I've now attempted to retrieve that, sort that out. I've been on the web chat with them this morning, and it's become quite like banging my face against a flat object repeatedly. So that was fun. Anyway, so enough of that shit. So the site's moved. That's all been migrated. Thank the Lord and Maker. And we'll see how that does. I need to look at the site and do some tweaking because it's kind of there as a thing. There's stuff on it. There's lots of content there. Lots of articles and stuff. If you've never visited, go and visit. There's some older stuff, like written reviews, all sorts of good stuff. That's it, I think there's no need to go further into that. Other than what I've been playing. So played games, two big ones actually in the last week. So Friday night, Ben bought On Mars, the Vita Lasada Euro Mars game. It is there was a spate of Marsy games. We had Terraform Mars, we had Portals, whatever that was, can't remember, Robinson Crusoe on Mars essentially, and numerous other iterations of Terraforming Mars have subsequently rolled out in the preceding years. But there was a Mars fascination for a while in the old board game world a couple of years back, and this was probably one of the last big sort of final Marsy bits. Vita Lasada, big heavy games. It's Ian O'Toole doing the design and all that on it, graphic design and all that, and it looks gorgeous. I've never played the Lasada games. I've kind of looked at them from the distance, but that heavy Euro-y sort of thing and the prospect of the teach is often just made me feel like just not doing that, really. So Ben backed the Weather Machine Kickstarter and backed, I know for definite, Escape Plan and Weather Machine and Kanban. I think those he picked up. Maybe Vinius, but I don't think he did because he's got Stonemeyer's wine-making thingy-majig, whatever it is. Not Tuscany, viticulture. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So yes, all that, he brought it along. He picked that up for somewhere else. We're going to play it. We did. So there's four of us playing it. It was a teaching game, and Ben did his best job at teaching us that, and we mostly got it right, though we buggered up the placement of things. What you're doing in the game, anyway, is you're essentially kind of building the very first sort of steps of a colony on Mars, which will lead to the colonization of it. So this is kind of the Martian sort of. And you're putting down units and things. Now, it's got this interesting mechanism. I'm not going to go deeply into it because there's a lot going on. Kind of a worker placement, engine buildery type thing. With the board you're doing stuff on, you have action turns where you're either in space and you can do a set amount of actions if you're in space, or you can move to go down to the surface, and then opens up different actions there, and you've got this whole sort of placement of stuff. You're building colony parts, which will generate you stuff. You can even get blueprints for even flashier, shinier kit that you build in front of you, and then it gives you an extra zingy ability, and some of that's quite powerful now looking at it. And you can get scientists, which you can send to people's special buildings to get that perk for free, and all sorts of stuff. And it's kind of this very big kind of thinky Euro. And we played it, as I say, we fucked up a couple of the walls, though I did my bit right, actually. Everyone else was fucking up. And it does that. It does all the stuff. You've got rovers, you're driving around the surface picking stuff up. You've got robots grabbing stuff. There's a lot fucking going on. I kind of got it. My head got around it, and I did it right. I didn't score any points for about 2/3 of the game. Everyone else was kind of moving off from the starting, and I was down on the 0. And then suddenly, kind of all the bits I put in motion seemed to kick into gear, and then bump, 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 I was scoring points as we went. And there's lots of ways of scoring points. You can score it for building certain building facilities. You can score them for blueprints, all sorts. There's lots of stuff going on. Lots of stuff you can either prime for end game, or you can do stuff during it. So where are we at with that? It looks beautiful. The graphic design is fantastic. Tool is, yes, he's very good. I mean, functionally you look at it and you understand the iconography and all that very well. Once you get what it's doing, it at a glance, it's all kind of there to see, which is very cool. And the game, well, heavy, kind of once you get past the initial kind of and learning of it, on the whole, it kind of then is a rinse repeat process, and it's a lot easier to kind of track. So it's one that we're going to have to go back to the table, A, to play properly, and B, to actually start flexing your muscles, as it were. Because the first play is, for me, is always kind of like, well, what am I doing? Gauge, and I tend to put up threads and pick at stuff just to see what happens. So yes, so who's it for? If you love your big, heavier Euros, then certainly this falls into that area. It is a different beast to Terraforming Mars. I think Terraforming Mars is very much like almost a pure kind of engine builder with the card play and all that, and it's relatively easy to teach the complexity. And in Terraforming Mars comes with the cards itself. They kind of add as you generate whatever you're doing in front of you, and obviously I can't think what it was called. The Robinson Crusoe portal game was a bit of a travesty, to be honest with you. Never played it, but I know it fell into all the same traps that the original Robinson Crusoe first edition did, which is impenetrable rulebook. And yes, it was a disaster, really, let's be honest, on launch. They did subsequently patch it as it went along. And I know people play it. I have Robinson Crusoe, and I enjoy Robinson Crusoe, and I'd kind of stood around the edges of it, but I thought, well, there's no point. And it kind of was a bit of I think. Anyway, so this, yes, if you like your really big, heavy Euros and you love the graphic design and all that, then I think that if that's your thing, you'll probably get a lot out of it. It's one we're going to play again. I'm reserving judgments on it. It's not something that set up home in my head. Sometimes you play a game and you're like, it's there and it kind of lives in your brain for a while and you're kind of just mulling and you want to kind of... It didn't really do that, but it's one I definitely would like to give another pop, which I'm sure we will. So that was that. And then we played Eclipse on Sunday night. Now, Eclipse, and you can see bits of it here. Eclipse is often held in the same kind of regard as Twilight Imperium, in this big 4X space thing, Odyssey, wargame combination thing, which to the passing, yes, you rubberneck it, and they are kind of similar beasts. They've got hex tiles on the board, spaceships move around, you take over planets and all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of where the line is drawn. I've always loved Twilight Imperium. I own TI4, the expansion. We play it whenever we can. It is a big, ginormous, opulent space opera in a box. It's story, it's intrigue, it's political machination, it's war, it's all that shit going on in a big FFG, mirror trash, dice rolling, rah! And Eclipse isn't that. Eclipse is a colder, more calculated Euro engine builder. Everything about it is much more thinky. It is essentially a kind of a bookkeeping exercise, really. It's to do with you kind of balancing your economy against the planets you take over and your war and whatever else you're doing. Very much more on that bookkeeping thing. And the second edition, which is, I held off on the first, it's been on my list for a while. I got a back pay from work and I treated myself to it because it's been there. And the second Dawn for the Galaxy, which is the version I've got, it's just a huge amount of quality life stuff and just streamlining to make it easy to get table and play. And that was the whole intent behind this. Is this a game that I can pull out and we can play in 3 to 4 hours as opposed to the 5 to 6 hours that TI really requires? So we played one game of it on Sunday night, and number one, we did do it in the time period allowed. I think it was about 3.5 hours or maybe 4 cuts that it played in. It is exactly what I've just said. It's this big engine buildery thing. I won't go massively into the rules of it because we're not doing that this second, but I will. Essentially, you get a player board, and there's 2 types. There's either everyone has the same, or you have these different aliens with just slight tweaks to what they can do. And you essentially have a bunch of lozenges on here, tokens on here, and you move them across to take these actions. And your actions are to explore, look at X's on the board, research. You can research lots of tech. All randomized tech comes out every round, and there's stuff you can research, all different powerful weapons or shields or other one-time perks, all sorts of good shit, which you put on your tech trees here, which become progressively cheaper as you do that and give you victory points at the end of the game. You can upgrade all the stuff you've developed here onto your spaceships, which is a really cool thing. You have blueprints for your spaceships, and you can load these up in whatever way you want, as long as they basically have an engine and they have an energy source to fuel all the goodies that are on it. And that's I'll come back to that in a minute. Then you can buy the things, the ships or whatever else you've got going on. You can move around again to the limits of your engines of your ships. And then there's an inference thing, which I won't massively go into here now. It allows you to kind of juggle around where your lozenges are on the board. You can kind of take stuff up and move stuff around, but will take 10-20 minutes to explain, and if you don't understand the game, you'll be sat there still going. It's simple, but it gets it. So it's very basic. You take one of these actions every round. That's what you do, and that's it. But the complexity, the fun comes from it is you'll have to balance your books, basically. Everyone has one of these things. And in it, there's a load of cubes around here, and you've got your money, your science, and your materials, essentially, which you use for building stuff, researching stuff, and that's your economy. And then you've got markers coming around this thing to track as you build or lose the stuff. And every end of every round, once everyone's passed, is you balance your books. You essentially, everything that you've spent off your lozenges here shows a number. That is what your income or your cost of your empire is that year. That round. So it's everything, all your lozenges, either the actions you've taken or by taking territory on the board, you're putting the lozenge down on those. And you have to pay that. And that basically is taken away from how much you're actually generating income, and anything left over from that is due. If you've built up economy and some cash in the back pocket, then you pay out of that. If you can't, then you basically have to start liquidating bits of galactic thing or converting stuff over. You have to pay it. Or you basically bankrupt yourself, and that's the end of that. So that's really in a nutshell. What I do like about it is, number one, the fights, the actual ships and technology is a whole different ballgame to TI4. TI4 is basically you build all your ships, and you have a massive fleet, send it in, you roll lots of dice, and shit happens, and it's all kind of at the same time. It's all kind of happening. Whereas in this, it's all much more tactical. You're moving everything around. You don't get to the fights until everyone's passed. So you kind of have this almost chess-like Cold Warian moving around the board, and stuff's getting moved into place. There's a thing in here that ships basically get locked into place. One of my ships will lock someone else's ship into place. So if I got 2 ships, that will lock 2 of theirs. So you can't move through systems unless you've got more ships than what you're being locked by. You're being pinned. So it kind of limits what you can do, or you have to, you can get locked into areas. You're going to plan to make that big push and attack, but then someone else moves in and locks off your fleet. That's a kind of tactical thing. And the actual fights itself are much more involved. They're based in who got into the fight first, kind of gets into fights with people. And then you have initiative on your ships, which is added up by the components or whatever, which then dictates when you fire your shots. Whoever's got the higher initiative goes first. It is quite plausible that you can get into a fight with someone else or more than one person, and you've got the higher initiative and you're in the fights earlier, that you could blaze away and murder all the opposition before they have a chance to fire back. Tony made a fatal error of building ships with lots of missiles on them, which are great because they do a lot of damage, but they're all one shot and done. So they fire at the very start of combat, and that's it. And he went in, fired with his missiles, missed everything, and then he had nothing else to fire back with. So he just got ripped to shreds. And then you can modify your design of your ships throughout the game. So if you come against something that is a problem for you, then you can go away, research the tech and tweak it, and then go, okay, well, now I can come at it with this. And it's kind of cool. That is in a nutshell what it's doing. There's a lot more to it, but that's it. So we played 4-player. I thought it did take, as I say, about 4 hours to play, but actually not bad going considering first play. Having played TI4, it was easy enough to pick up what was going on with this. I like that there's neutral factions on the board that you also have to interact with. There's a little bit of diplomacy in the game, 4 players plus, where you can kind of send diplomats to each other, and they basically just boost your engine building. There is an option if you then subsequently break that in a fight, you attack your partner in that, then you receive a -2 victory point card that basically given that you're a traitor, you're not to be trusted, you can't do any more diplomatic actions after that, and unless someone else breaks a diplomatic point, you're stuck with that -2 victory points for the remainder of the game. And that's it. The cool thing when you have fights, you pull out of a bag here and you get chitties out of there depending on what you destroyed in the fight and what you did, and you pick one of them to lock onto your player board, and they go from everything from 1s all the way up to, I've probably got one here, to 4s or 3s or whatever. And there is a limited amount of space on all your player boards as to what you can lock in of those. So they put victory points at the end. And that's it, really. You're building a galactic empire, building this stuff, developing all this over these 8 rounds, and then it's done. And it moves fairly quickly early doors because you've got less actions and you're kind of cautious of that. And towards the last 2 or 3 rounds, it starts becoming a lot more. I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad to have it. It is a different beast to TI. TI is the big, massive, I say, opulent space opera. This is a much more calculated engine buildery type thing. It's got a bit of a Scythe vibes to it, but actually you get to fight in this, as opposed to just kind of not. And it looks gorgeous. Graphic design again is really good. I love how all that works, and there's much more tactics in the laying of the hexes in this and what's available. And as I say, all that tactics around ships and ship combat and all that is a lot more meat to that than there is in TI. All of that I did. It did the magic. It kind of purred away in my brain. Cool. Eclipse, 2nd edition. I will come back to this. We're going to play it again anyway. I'm going to try and get a game in, I think, Friday. It's cool. I think it's going to fit. It plays up to 6, which is insane. I don't know how long that would take. But it means that it's something I can get to the table meaty, maybe on a Friday night before 5 of us, that we can play, and I can get that that 4X space battle thing feel, but, in that itty-bitty playtime in comparison. So good, all good stuff. Like it, as I said, there's factions, different factions. I think there's 6 in the base. No, there's maybe, I think there's 6. And they have, as I say, either Terrans, which are just basically the same as everyone else, or you have got these slight tweaks, and they are slight tweaks to the different factions. And I think they're releasing some more later in the year or next year, which I might well be interested in picking up. Really enjoyed Eclipse. This version is fantastic. Everything is got the tray of all your tech. You can load onto your ships. It's all designed to make it very easy to set up and play. And I very much respect and enjoy that, because that makes everything a lot easier. Essentially, in there is everything you need for your player. You give that to them. They lift the lid off. Everything's in there. Boom. That's your stuff. So all of that's fantastic. And even though I've got the organizer for TI4, that's a bit of a klutz to set up. So, brilliant. It doesn't replace TI for me. If I've got the spare time to play a TI game, I will play a TI game. However, if I know I'm not going to get the time to do that, then I would more than happily sidle into playing Eclipse. And I want to play some more of this, and I will report back when I've played more as to how all that goes. But yes, liking all of that. Thank you very much. News, I feel, is the thing. Here is the news. So, quick news. Number 1, happy birthday, James. James Murray's birthday the other day. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, James. He's one of our Patreon supporters. Lovely bloke. Hopefully I can catch him up at a con soon if we go to a convention. But happy birthday to him. Don't know what he got. Should ask for Eclipse. So that's that. The site I've covered. We've done that. Spiel happened. And that's about all I can really add, to that. I know that Portal had 11 there, the football game, which I'd seen at Expo, which is kind of Porter, but with football, really. And some other bits. And they did a new Empires of the North. I think it's a campaign expansion, something about Lighthouse. So there was them. I don't know. Hopefully I'll maybe get to see them and review them. Other than that, CGE had a few things there. Starship Captains seem to be getting a bit of buzz. That's it. They're really not massive. I personally have not seen a lot of buzz from Spiel. And as I said in the prior video, to be fair, I don't remember a lot of buzz from last Spiel, and I don't really recall very much being like the hotness that's endured throughout the rest of the year that everyone's still talking about, other than maybe Ark Nova. Yeah, I've reached a point where, unless it's absolutely marvellous and magical and it ticks all my boxes, I'm kind of like, I'm happy to let that pass me by. And if, something rises above the parapet as being fantastic, then fine. Down the road, maybe pick it up. But yeah, I don't know. Unless anyone get a Spiel? What did you see? Was anything good? I like Spiel for going and finding all the little hidden away stuff, those gems that are buried somewhere in Hall Z or something somewhere. That's kind of the attraction for that. But it's an expensive proposition these days. One day I will return. What else? Oh, yes, and another bad news. I managed to delete all the video footage for a bunch of reviews I was going to do because I'm an idiot. So Batman Everybody Lies was on the way. Yeah, I've deleted that, so I'm going to have to refilm that. Plus, I've got Horticulture coming from Tinkerbot Games to review. It's going to be a tight time frame to do that in because it's only a couple of weeks. I played it ages ago, about a good year or two ago, when they were doing the original plan for Kickstarter for it. It's a very cool little game from Tinkerbots. So they're sending me a nice, flashier version of it. So I will persevere to get that banged out in time. That's the plan. Yikes. And that's it. I don't think there's much else to get excited about that I'm aware of. I know that the Escape from New York Kickstarter is happening at some point soon, but I don't know. I'm on the fence on that one. Anyway, that's it. Other than that, what I've been doing, I've been watching, I've kind of been digging into, I've been watching Lord of the Rings, which I think looks stunning. Doesn't really have, I'm not connecting to the characters greatly. I mean, I'm watching it, but I'm not engaged with it, if that makes sense. It looks gorgeous and I get what it's doing, but I'm not like, oh! Whereas Game of Thrones I've been watching, and I'm really become very vested in that. I really enjoy it. It's now a couple of episodes are really kind of oomph, doing that Game of Thrones thing that we love. There was a funeral in the last episode which ended like any gathering in Game of Thrones in horrific fashion, and I'm just digging that it's finally really feeling and being like Game of Thrones. So if you ever liked Game of Thrones, then this is more of the same, but it's highly entertaining, really good cast, really good cast, and just great. It's doing all that stuff that if you like it, you'll dig it, and I'm digging it. Andor, again, fantastic. I've covered that already. My only frustration with Andor is, number one, the episodes are like 30 to 40 minutes long, and there's one a week, and it's torturous waiting because it's one kind of big storyline. You're kind of going, I want some more of that. So it's definitely one I'll be revisiting probably once there's more out. I think just watching it in chunks rather than episode by episode is a little bit like, it's good, but it's like, oh, it's leaving you kind of, it just feels, whereas this one big long narrative to a point, it does very much feel like you're getting little snippets of it rather than self-contained stuff, which is cool. I like all that, but it is torturous when you're there sat there going, please more. And currently in our current times, the whole rise of the rebellion and all that seems very on point, to be honest with you. So that's well worth a look. I watched Clerks the other day and watched it for years. Son number one had mentioned it. I thought, you know what, we will. So I sat and watched Clerks. It's held up pretty well. There's maybe some stuff in there that's probably not quite not good these days, but mostly on the whole, it's very funny. There's still scenes in there that had me absolutely roaring. I do love a bit of Kevin Smith. Clerks is fantastic. And I really enjoyed rewatching that again, actually. We might watch some of the other Askew-verse stuff, because there's obviously a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I know he enjoyed that, and it did make me chuckle. And that's it. Oh, and Buffy. Me and the missus started watching Buffy again, because why not? We kind of met over Buffy. It's a strange thing. But yeah, we watched the musical episode the other day, because it was on Disney Plus. I put it on because I know it's an easy watch. So now I'm like, oh, we could go back and watch Buffy. So we might do some of that, with the obviously massive amounts of time that I have spare available to me. So there you go. That's it for the minute. This is take 2 of this video. Hopefully there's not a take 3. Look after yourselves. Have fun. I hope you're all right out there. Stay safe. Stay warm as best you can. And we'll do this again very soon, I'm sure. Absolutely. I'll be back with a horticulture review because I need to get that cracked out. And possibly the other reviews that I filmed that I now need to refilm. And more of this. Ta-ta for now, and all that. Be seeing you, and all that. Bye bye.